Imagine this, 1400 years ago, a group of hunter-gatherers in Jordan. They grind wild grains, mix with water, and press onto hot stones. They bake something that shouldn't exist yet, bread thousands of years before farming was even invented. That means bread isn't agriculture's invention. Agriculture might actually be bread's invention. Think about that for a second. We built civilization for bread. Let's go back, way back, before farms, before cities, before anything we'd recognize as society. Our ancestors ate raw grains for hundreds of thousands of years. Hard, tough, energy-draining stuff. Then someone figured out crush grains between rocks, mix with water. Congratulations, you just invented cold porridge. Then fire changed everything. Roast grains over flames. They smell better, taste better, digest easier. Someone poured porridge onto a hot, flat rock, and the first flatbread was born. No yeast, no rising, no fuss, just flour, water, heat, and magic. Now here's the crazy part. For most of human history, that's all bread was, flat, unleavened. Then someone left their dough in a dark corner. A few days later, it bubbled, it smelled sour, it looked weird. They baked it anyway, probably out of hunger or stubbornness, and they invented leavened bread by accident. Air pockets, soft texture, completely different. That happy accident changed everything. The ancient Egyptians were the first to master fermentation. They became the world's first professional bakers. They built closed ovens. They created dozens of different bread varieties. In Egypt, bread was so valuable, it was used as wages. Pyramid builders were paid in bread and beer. They worshipped Osiris, the god of grain. Bread wasn't just food, it was sacred. The Greeks elevated bread to an art form. They had over 50 distinct types of bread. Barley bread was for everyday meals. Wheat bread was reserved for celebrations and holidays. When Rome conquered Greece, bread conquered Rome. The empire that ruled the world bowed to flour and water. The Romans built massive public grain mills. They built giant ovens across the entire empire. Granite grinding stones made flour finer than ever before. White bread became the symbol of wealth and status. The rich ate white, the poor ate dark. Bread divided society as much as it united it. And then Panem ate circumcision, bread and circuses. Roman emperors gave free bread to keep the masses content. A full stomach is quiet. A quiet stomach doesn't rebel. When the empire fell, monasteries preserved bread-making knowledge. Monks saved not just ancient books, but ancient dough. They kept sourdough starters alive for generations, living history in a bowl of flour and water. But here's what nobody tells you. Hunter-gatherers had better diets than early farmers. More variety, more nutrients, more protein. Farmers worked 10 hours to get the calories hunters got in 6. So why did anyone give up hunting for farming? Because bread had something hunting didn't. It was storable. You can't keep fresh meat for months. But dried bread, that lasts through winter, that feeds you when the hunt fails. Bread was portable, calorie-dense, and didn't spoil quickly. It was humanity's first packaged food. And bread required large-scale farming. In return, farming required bread to justify the labor. This is the loop. Bread and agriculture fed each other. Together, they created a new world. That new world was civilization itself. From Mesopotamia to Egypt, from Greece to Rome, bread was the foundation. The Sumerians baked leavened bread around 6000 BC. They passed their knowledge to the Egyptians. The Egyptians added yeast to flour. They invented the bread we recognize today, fluffy, airy, golden. But where did yeast even come from? It was everywhere, on the surface of grains, floating in the air. Leave dough outside, wild yeast does its thing. That's how sourdough was born, nature doing the work. The Gauls and Iberians used beer foam to leaven their bread. Wine drinkers used fermented grape must. But the most common way, save a piece of dough from yesterday. That's sourdough starter, a living tradition. Bread became the center of social life. It was the reason people sat down together. The Italian word companatico means what goes with bread. Lunch was simply bread and whatever came with it. Italians say, buono come il pane, good as bread, and pan al pane vino al vino, call bread bread, call wine wine. Call it what it is. Honesty, that's what bread teaches. In medieval England, bread was the plate. A stale piece of bread called a trencher served as your dish. When food was scarce, you ate the plate too. Nothing went to waste. Bread was also the law. The assize of bread in 13th century England. It regulated price, weight, and quality. Bad bread could get you fined or worse. Bread was national security. Then came the dark side, bread adulteration. In the 18th and 19th centuries, bakers added chalk, sawdust, plaster. Cheaper bread, but dangerous bread. Reformers like Sylvester Graham fought back. He wrote about making whole grain bread at home. That's how Graham bread was born. Healthy, wholesome, honest. Britain passed the Food Adulteration Act in 1860. The fight for clean bread had begun. The 20th century, industrialization hit bread hard. The bread slicing machine was invented in 1912. The commercial slicer came in 1928. Pre-sliced, pre-packaged, no knife needed. But industrialization had a price: nutritional loss, white flour stripped of its goodness. The US government mandated vitamin fortification in 1941 to put back what was taken away. Then 1961, the Chorleywood process, intensive mechanical mixing to reduce rising time dramatically. Faster production, cheaper loaves, but the flavor died. Industrial bread, soft, fluffy, and utterly boring. Artisan bakers in Italy fought back. 90% of Italian bakers are still artisans, not factories. They keep regional traditions, family recipes. They refuse to let bread become soulless. But here's the bigger picture. Bread changed humanity more than any other invention, deeper than the wheel, more than fire. It made humans give up nomadism. It forced us to settle, farm, and build villages. When you settle, you start accumulating. You start owning, trading, and ranking. Bread didn't just feed people. It organized society. It created structure, laws, and civilization. But there's a paradox. Farming and bread might not have been a nutritional step forward. Hunter-gatherers were taller and healthier than early farmers. They had more variety, more protein, less disease. So why trade health for bread? Because bread gave stability. You could survive the winter. You could feed more people on the same land. Population exploded. Quality of life declined. But we chose bread anyway. Because bread let us build something bigger, not just surviving, thriving. First cities needed bread. First empires needed bread. Armies marching far from home, they carried hardtack dried bread that lasted years. Bread was military logistics. Long-distance trade. Grain and flour were gold. The spice routes were nothing compared to the grain routes. Cities rose and fell on grain shipments. Rome fell partly because its grain supply was cut. Bread made humans think about the future, not just tomorrow, but next winter. Planning, storing, managing, that's governance. Bread taught us administration. There's another angle, bread in spirituality. The Bible mentions bread over 300 times. Bread is the staff of life. Bread is God's presence in communion. Unleavened bread for Passover, holy bread for the Eucharist. Every major religion has bread in its rituals. It bridges human and divine. But back to the science, the oldest bread evidence. At Shubayqa 1 in Jordan, 14,400 years old. Archaeologists found charred breadcrumbs in fireplace pits. They used microscopes to analyze the structure. It was made from wild barley, wild wheat and oats, plus tubers from bulrush plants. Grinding, sifting, kneading, baking on hot stones. Flat, unleavened, primitive but perfect. This discovery rewrote history. Bread predates farming by 4,000 years. The Natufians were semi-sedentary hunter-gatherers. They lived in stone structures, buried their dead with ceremony. They had carefully built hearths. They had sophisticated grinding tools. They hunted gazelles and waterfowl, but they also spent hours making bread. Making bread from wild grains was incredibly labor-intensive. Collecting, husking, grinding, kneading, baking, hours of work. They didn't make bread every day. They made it for special occasions. Scientists believe bread was a luxury food then, special, desirable, and everyone wanted more. The desire for more bread might have been the trigger. It pushed them to start planting grains. This means bread actually triggered the agricultural revolution, not the other way around. At Çatalhöyük in Turkey, archaeologists found 8,600-year-old leavened bread, the oldest yeast-raised bread in the world. A spongy palm-sized loaf near the oven, wheat, barley, and peas around it, a full meal. Before this discovery, the oldest leavened bread was Egyptian, 3,500 years old. Çatalhöyük pushed it back thousands of years. So bread has been with us for at least 14,400 years, maybe 30,000 years. Some evidence suggests even older. Today, when you bite into a sandwich, toast, or pizza, you're doing what Natufians did 14,000 years ago in Jordan. They ground, mixed, baked, and invented civilization. Bread built the world you're living in, and it's still in your hands every single morning.